Hello and welcome to another instalment of the Gersnet Podcast. So another week down and two more impressive results for the famous Glasgow Rangers. This week has seen us progress to the next stage in two different competitions in games that were both challenging but for very, very different reasons. This week on the show, we'll be casting a critical eye over a League Cup triumph against a physical Kilmarnock side, as well as another composed and convincing display away from home against Maribor, which sealed our passage into the playoff round of the Europa League, putting us 180 minutes away from the group stages. We'll take a look at all the action, the goals, the injuries, the major talking points after a very impressive week on the park. Then we'll take a look at the shape of the squad and discuss all the latest transfer gossip, with one eye on the fast approaching transfer deadline. My name's Ross Bennett and I'll be your Gersnet Podcast host this week. And joining me, we've got two stalwarts of the pod. First up, we've got the Gersnet Commander-in-Chief, Stewart Franklin. Stewart, how are you doing this evening?
I'm very well, mate. In a good mood after a cracking one today.
Aye, absolutely. And also in the chair tonight, it's everyone's second favourite host, Colin Armstrong. Colin, how's your week been?
It's been better than your part, that's for sure, Ross. I can tell you that. Yeah, very good, very happy. Good result on Thursday, and even better today. So yeah, it's all rosy in the Armstrong Garden.
Superb. I tell you what, I've been on cloud nine all week with Rangers this week. Firstly, you've got the excitement ahead of the Maribor game, all that build up. Then you get the result on Thursday, putting us through to the playoff round, and then today another cracking result at Rugby Park. It's been a top week. I think today's game is probably the best place to start, so we'll dive straight on in. Normally, we'd probably take a look at the lineups and how we performed first of all, but actually this week I'd like to address a real bugbear of mine, and that's artificial pitches. These plastic pitches, the 3G, 4G, whatever it is. I think we need to address this and get this out of the way as quickly as we can. Right, plastic pitches. Jamie Murphy today goes off looking seriously injured. We're recording this as we usually do on a Sunday night, so we don't know yet the extent of the injury. By the time you guys are listening to this on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, it might well be a little bit more clear about how long Jamie Murphy's out for. But from our point of view right now, he looked seriously hurt, seriously injured this afternoon on the same pitch that crocked Martin Waghorn and gave him a serious knee injury. Stuart, I'll come to you first. Does the SPFL really need to take a look at these plastic pitches? We've seen Livingston have come up from the Championship, laid this new plastic pitch, and it's been getting awful reviews. It seems dangerous. The players don't like playing on it. We've had two serious knee injuries now at Rugby Park. Do the league need to take a look and put player safety first here?
Yeah, I think so. These pitches are awful. I mean, not just in terms of injuries. I mean, we've had two you could put down to bad luck or whatever you like, but just the standard of the football is so poor that the ball doesn't bounce correctly. The amount of times that people, Kilmarnock mainly, were playing long balls in behind, and then the ball sort of bounced about 10, 12 feet in the air and checks, and players are having to check their runs, and that's what was causing fouls. And you could tell the majority of the players, on both teams in fact, in the first sort of 20 minutes were sort of trying to get to grips with the surface. It didn't look like it had been watered in weeks. It was dreadful, and honestly, when I'd seen the photographs of the Livingston pitch yesterday, I dread to think what's going to happen when we play them, because it's these pitches, they're completely unacceptable.
They are. I mean, you're right. The way the ball bounces on that, when I lived in London, I watched a lot of kind of junior and non-league football down there, and there's a lot of teams at that level with these 3G pitches. And when you're standing right up close to it, you can see that the ball does not react in the same way that it does on grass. And you're right. That's why players, they don't anticipate the bounce of the ball. They're nervous, they're hesitant, and that's how they get injured. And players are getting hurt. So it's dangerous to the players and it spoils it for the viewer. Colin, what's your opinion on these plastic pitches? I know they have benefits in terms of bringing revenue in for the clubs, but does that outweigh the risks?
I'm going to be slightly controversial here, and this is slightly based on my own experience with them. I mean, I only ever played at amateur level, but based on some of the pitches I played on at that level on grass, then when you moved up to the sort of 3-4G, I always found them really, really good surfaces to play on. One thing I will say, the level that I'm playing at is not the same level that these guys are playing at. We're not playing at the same tempo. We're not running at the same speed. And there does undeniably seem to be a link between players getting injured on these surfaces. But I think they're here to stay. And I'll be honest with you, I think as the technology around these surfaces improve, then I think bigger clubs will start to look at them. I really do. I might be wrong. You already get the sort of the hybrid pitches now, half grass, half synthetic. I think if the technology gets to a certain level with these pitches, then I think this is what we're going to have from here on in.
Do UEFA, the team that withdrew in the Europa League, I'm sure they've got a 3G or a 4G pitch as well. I don't know what the rules are in regards to Europa League, whether you have to play on grass, but there was an excellent appraisal of them on a website the other day there after we drew them, and I'm sure the guy mentioned the fact that they play on an artificial pitch. Are you guys aware of that?
Well, I'm not sure about that. One thing I will say is the last time I played 11-a-side football was about 3-4 years ago, and it was on a pitch in Edinburgh. I can't remember it, and it was a UEFA certified pitch, in terms of size and in terms of the surface. So again, I go back to what I was saying earlier. I think that's the way the game is going. I think we're maybe 10, 15 years away from it, but I think big clubs have got an eye on this in the future. I agree at the moment they're a problem. That one at Livingston looks an utter shambles. The footage last week from their first game of the season, when all the wee black pellets, every time any player run, these wee black pellets were flying up from the ground. I think they've maybe got a way to go, but I genuinely think big clubs will start to look at these if the technology improves to a certain standard.
I think that's fine if the technology improves, both in terms of the natural bounce of the ball and how the ball reacts as it hits the grass, fine, but also the player safety point of view. If they can improve that side of things, I'm all for it, fine, because it does bring in a lot of revenue for the club. It can be used all throughout the year. There's no risk of postponements because of the snow or waterlogging or anything like that. But if that's the case and we're going to get there with technology, I think from a safety point of view, there should be an embargo on them, a ban on them until that technology is suitably advanced to protect the players. Jamie Murphy today is hobbled off. He's not a player that goes down and gets injured lightly. He's an honest professional footballer. And he's gone off with what looks like a really serious knee injury. He's getting carted off in a stretcher, really in pain. And for me, at this point, it's just not worth the risks. I saw today, before the game, I saw a picture of the Livingston pitch had been tweeted, and someone had just tweeted it and said, this pitch is so bad, how long before someone does their cruciate? And if that's what's happened to Jamie Murphy today, albeit not at Livingston, but at Kilmarnock, I think it's unforgivable, and both the clubs involved and the SPFL have to take a look at themselves if they're allowing players to be endangered like that. I appreciate the benefits, but for me, the technology's not advanced enough yet to protect the players, and that's the most important thing. That's a little bugbear of mine, a wee rant that I needed to get off my chest, and I appreciate, Colin, your views on that. Sorry, did you want to come in with?
No, I think you're right. I do. There is part of your argument that I can agree with. There's no doubt about that, but I do think, and I've seen a massive improvement in these artificial surfaces in the last 20 years. I don't know how old you are, Ross, but back in the 90s, they used to be just like, it was almost like a felt surface with loads of sand on it, and now it's this sort of artificial grass. So if the technology has come on that much in the last sort of 10, 15 years, then you would have to imagine it's going to improve again and get to a certain standard. One thing I will say in defence of these pitches is, I can remember Stevie Naismith getting injured when he played for Rangers up at Pittodrie with a fairly innocuous thing, and that was grass. Going back a few years, Ole Kuznetsov up at St Johnstone, that was on grass. No one near him, studs caught in the turf. So these kind of injuries do happen on grass as well. But you can't deny that there's a link between players getting injured in these surfaces at the moment, and there is an argument to suggest that they maybe shouldn't be getting used at this particular time in the top league in Scotland. But I do think if the technology improves at the rate that it has been improving, that's what we're going to have in the future.
It's a fair point about players get injured on grass and all surfaces, and it's fine. And I think if we've got to this point now where it's more than a quarter of the clubs in the Premier League in Scotland have an artificial pitch of some form or another. So if the SPFL were to say that these are now no longer allowed, then they're going to have to shell out money to compensate the clubs that have got the artificial pitches for relaying the turf. So it's not going to happen. But to
come in again, we'll see another thing that the big clubs are slightly contradicting themselves in this matter, is they've all got them to train on.
Aye.
All their training centres, they've all got them because they require them through the winter months and all the rest of it. So I find it hard for clubs to be moaning about surfaces and players as well. I believe Alan McGregor was tweeting about it today. When they train on them, they train on these surfaces, so it's a difficult one. But I do think there is an argument to say that they maybe need to get to a better level before we start using them in the top league.
I think that's the bottom line for me. And after today, it's left a slightly sour taste with Jamie Murphy going off. I like Jamie Murphy as a player. I think a lot of the criticism he's had over the past 2 or 3 weeks has been unfair. We don't know how bad the injury is at this point, and I just hope it's not as bad as it first looks. Moving on to the game itself, 3-1 away at Kilmarnock at Rugby Park against a team that consistently frustrated and challenged Rangers last season. I thought we were night and day from the club, from the team that we were putting out there a year ago. Particularly today, impressed with our high press again, something that seems to be a hallmark of a Gerrard team, and the way that we really moved the ball quickly. Frankie, what did you make of the overall performance today?
Yeah, I was very happy. Obviously, Kilmarnock started the game quite brightly, and I think we couldn't get our own half for the first sort of 3 or 4 minutes. At that point, you're sort of wondering, has there been a bit of a reaction to Thursday night and to travelling and perhaps not recovering as well as we'd hope? And obviously, there's a few changes in the team, but we got into the game after that, and to be honest, we pretty much dominated. I think Stevie Clark says that they went toe to toe with us, and to be fair, Kelly did okay. I mean, Wes obviously had 2 or 3 excellent saves. He was very competent today. I liked his performance actually, but I mean, once we got the second goal, you're thinking hopefully an easy street for the second half. Unfortunately, we gave a cheap. Sort of turned out to be a consolation just after half time. But again, the team reacted well. They kept working hard, and to be honest, if it wasn't for the Kilmarnock goalkeeper, it could have been 5 or 6 again today.
Yeah, the Kilmarnock goalkeeper had a very good sort of 10-15 minute spell in the second half there when we were really peppering the goal, and he did very, very well. I'm glad you mentioned Foderingham actually, because again, with McGregor coming in this season, a lot of people are kind of ramping up a wee bit how much worse Foderingham is compared to McGregor. And I think a lot of the criticism he's had has been unfair. Fodringham's been a decent keeper, not an outstanding keeper or a real showstopper over the past couple of years, but he's been solid and he's been decent. And I'm glad that he's come in today and had that chance. And he's made a couple of very, very good saves today. And I'm glad he took his opportunity. Colin, how about you? How did you see the game today? Again,
very, very impressed with the overall performance. It's becoming a bit of a hallmark of Steven Gerrard's teams. Look very solid at the back. Cheapish goal, which came from, I think it came from Tav giving the ball away at the other end of the ground. But overall, I don't think I ever felt we were going to lose it today, which is a feeling that as a Rangers supporter I've not felt for a long, long time. But the more this team starts to build its momentum, the more confident you feel with every game. And even when they scored, when it went 2-1, I was like, oh, squeaky bum time. But deep down, I never felt overly panicked. I think a wee special word of mention should go to Andy Halliday today. I mean, you were talking about Foderingham there, being on the receiving end of some criticism since McGregor's arrived. And that's a boy as well who's taken his fair amount of stick for his, the level of his performance, which hasn't been great at times, but I thought today he played very, very well. So if he takes the stick when it's flying about, he should also be taking the praise. He done very well today.
Yeah, absolutely. A very fair point. He was good today, and he was, we'll discuss the Maribor game in a few minutes in a bit more detail. He obviously filled in at left back there. He wasn't great. He wasn't shocking. He got caught out a few times. He was exposed a couple of times against, a decent attacking line. I was surprised maybe to see him starting today, but it probably did have a little nod towards resting some people for next week. But he came in and he did the job that was asked of him, and I thought he was very impressive. He won the ball back nicely a few times. His distribution was good. He was solid. His vision was nice. He did what Steven Gerrard asked him to do, and I'm sure I've seen that Gerrard has praised him quite strongly in various interviews and various pieces to the media. He said that Halliday's training like a consummate professional. And look, we all know that Halliday would do anything for this club. I remember when he signed, he did his interview with Rangers TV, and he said, I would play in goal for this club just to be here. And sometimes we need that passion. But you're right, Colin, he was good today. But was there anyone for you that needed to improve? Was there anyone that was slightly poorer today?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I thought it was a solid 7 out of 10 performance from most players today. I can't really think of anyone who I thought let them down. I come back to Tav, and I know he sort of splits opinion. I genuinely feel he would be a better player for Rangers if they moved him one up. I think defensively he gets caught out a lot of the times. I genuinely believe that teams, when they're planning when managers are planning a game against Rangers through the week in training and all the rest of it, they focus on that side because they know he comes forward so much. So I think, especially now that it looks like Murphy's out for a bit, I think that, you could maybe slip Flanagan in at right back and push Tav one up, because he got 3 assists today. So what he does in terms of attacking, I don't think anyone can deny what the boy gives to the team. But I do worry about him on the defensive side of things, and I think he gets exposed at times, and I don't think he senses danger enough at times. So it's maybe a case of taking him out of that position and putting him one up. But other than that, I mean, I thought it was a 7 out of 10 performance from everyone today. Everyone done their bit.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. On the Tav thing, I know exactly what you're saying, and he is good going forward. And 3, I didn't know it was 3 assists today, but I mean that just shows what he does contribute. My only thing is I have a serious, deep man love for Daniel Candeias, and it would break my heart to see him dropping out of the team for Tavernier to play at right wing. So I'm going to disagree with you on that, because I cannot see Danny being dropped. It would crush me. Frankie, how about you? You said that Foderingham was good in goal today. Was there anyone that you think needs to raise their game or up their performance at all?
I think after that one, it's difficult to really offer much criticism. I think Ajaria struggled a wee bit today. I don't think he really got into the game, and I think when he was in the ball, he was a bit wasteful, especially in the first half. But to be fair to the lad, he works really hard. I mean, I think he's got his divided opinion, much like Windass did at his time with the club. I think they're not exactly similar type of players, but obviously he's got that bit of sort of charisma in the way he wants to play. He wants to beat men. He wants to take the ball in, and he's got tricks here or there. And sometimes he does that at the wrong time. And I think he was guilty of that again once or twice today. But nobody can argue with his work rate. I think he's reliable on that front. I'm not so sure that Windass was ever have that with him. So I think in terms of man for man, I think Ijada's turning out to be a good signing. Other than that, I think he was the only one I thought sort of maybe struggled at times. Kent came into the game the last half an hour. Again, I think the first half he was a bit wasteful, gave the ball away once or twice. And it was maybe better just to keep possession. And you mentioned Candeias. I actually thought he changed the game a wee bit when he came on. I don't think Murphy was doing much wrong, but I think Candeias just he has that bit extra pace, and he was sort of splitting inside, and because he was doing that, it was creating space for Tavernier. And I think I get what Colin's saying in terms of maybe moving Tav further forward, and I've said the same myself. I'd like to see that happen, maybe against tougher opposition. But I think the main benefit of playing Tav deeper is that at times he runs really well, and that's what you've seen at the first goal especially. He came in a bit late, but Candeias took the ball in, and he played an excellent ball right onto Tav's run and crossed it in, and then you go 1-0. So I think you'd miss that if you played Tav a bit further forward. So, and I think he's actually improved his defensive work as well. He's incredibly strong. I think the amount of times he's able to sort of get the ball off of people just by using the top half of his body is quite impressive actually the last year or two. So I think the lad's improving, and he was phenomenal today.
Whatever way you look at it, there's options there. Even with Murphy going out, there's options, and Tav's a handy player in that he could play in other positions. So he's a very useful player, and he contributes so much to the team. I'm glad you picked up on Ajaria, and I'd like to talk about Ajaria for a couple of minutes, because I can't quite work him out as a player, in that he does show flashes of having really good feet, having good vision. Sometimes I think his distribution is not great, which bugs me a little bit for a creative midfielder. But I sometimes worry that he receives the ball and he either wants to do a trick or something a wee bit flamboyant, or he wants to spend too long kind of stationary, too long on the ball, and he slows the game right down and takes the pace right out of it. And sometimes it looks a little bit out of place, because something that struck me about the team is over the last few weeks is that we can move the ball very, very quickly going forward. And sometimes I think it gets to Ajaria and it all just slows down and becomes a little bit static. So, Frankie, with that in mind, do you think maybe, he's a good player but not quite suited to the Scottish game? Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, I think so. I think what you're saying is definitely very fair. I think it's just age. I think his decision making's questionable at this point. I think sometimes he does move the ball quite quickly, and some of his passing is really quite direct and has good pace to it. I mean, you've seen evidence of that with the third goal. He played the ball into Scotty Arfield, who had a good game coincidentally as well, and so Ajaria is capable of that. He's definitely capable of beating people. I think it's just doing the right thing at the right time. He struggles with whether that's maintaining possession, whether it's trying to beat a man, or whether it's trying to play the killer pass, if you like. I think that'll come with ages. The problem with Ajaria, I doubt he'd probably be first choice if other people were fit and ready to play. But I think he's certainly offered a good option, and I've been pretty impressed with him so far.
No, it's certainly a good option, and that's what we need, especially with the games coming thick and fast at the moment. Is we need options, and Gerard's shown he's not afraid to rotate. And even when he does rotate, we still have a very strong squad. I noticed that someone tweeted after the game today that Rangers scored 5 goals and we won that game 3-1. And that brings us nicely onto the biggest talking point of the game for me, which happened after only a few minutes in the game, with the decision to not award us a goal when Alfredo Morelos had a bit of a sclaff, bit of a miskick, but the ball bounced, and I know the BBC are reporting it that it looked like it may have crossed the line, but the TV images are pretty conclusive that the ball crossed the line, the whole of the ball crossed the line, and Rangers should have had quite an early goal. Frankie, with this one, we've spoken on the podcast quite a lot about the standard of refereeing in Scotland, both this season and last year on the podcast. We spoke about this consistently, that the standard of refereeing is poor. We seem to be on the wrong end of decisions that are confusing and at best inconsistent. With this goal that wasn't given today and that should have been given, when you see the images on TV, I saw that for the linesman there's a fair number of players in the way, and from the referee, who was standing kind of out of the front of the box, there was a lot of players in the way. When the ball's moving that fast and it's cleared just after it's crossed the line, can you blame officials in this instance for not giving the goal?
Yeah, I think you can. I think these guys are well paid. I think they should have their positioning should be spot on. I think it's difficult for the referee. He was sort of in line with the penalty spot, maybe a few yards to the right of it, but the linesman was perfectly placed to see it. You just needed to look at the guy's standing leg. The standing leg was on the goal line, so of course the ball was over the line. I mean, in real time, okay, it's maybe isn't easy to tell, but at the time I was watching an HD picture and I thought it was a goal. So I wasn't surprised when after the replays that it was proven. I mean, it was a good yard over the line. It wasn't just like it was just over. So it was really, really poor officiating once again. And I don't want to go down the conspiracy route. I don't think there's a conspiracy against us. I just think it's easier in terms of the coverage for these guys just to play it coy with us. Send their player off if it's easy to send them off. But don't do the same opposition players. If you're not very sure, don't give the goal instead of giving it. If you don't know 100% sure it's a penalty, don't give it. I mean, the one where Morelos was pulled back, I mean, it's a clear penalty kick. Absolutely. I mean, the commentators were saying there wasn't a huge amount of force in it. It doesn't matter. It was pulled back. It's a foul. If that happens anywhere else at the pitch, a foul's given. And the nonsense that Stephen Craigan was coming out with was laughable. I think BT Sport are going about how they have this a VAR team as well in the background. I don't know who that's comprised of, but and they were saying they didn't think there was enough force for it to be a penalty. It was a clear penalty, and I'm stunned at the poor officiating once again.
Yeah, again, it was a refereeing performance that could be described, if you're being kind, it was inconsistent. It was, some of the decisions are baffling, and like you, I don't want to go down this line on every single podcast we do, talking about the referees aren't good enough and why aren't they giving decisions to Rangers. The penalty incident you're describing, it was a penalty, and it's one of those where if it was anywhere on the pitch that wasn't there in the box, then it would have been a foul. And that's one of the most frustrating things as a fan, is the inconsistency. The things that, whether it's, it should have been a penalty, but you don't give it because it's in the box, or whether it's decisions that go against us that wouldn't go against another team. The inconsistency is what gets to the fans. And that's why there's so much chat coming from Rangers fans and from the manager himself about refereeing performances. Colin, thinking specifically though about this goal that wasn't given this afternoon, is it, I'm personally a big fan of both goal line technology and VAR. I know VAR still has a lot of kinks that need to be worked out. Is it becoming a little bit embarrassing that Scottish football is lagging behind now, that it doesn't even have goal line technology, which would have so easily sorted out that within a few seconds today?
I don't know if it's embarrassing, Ross, but it's just where Scottish football is at the moment in terms of finances and stuff like that. But to be honest with you, it shouldn't have been required today. I think things like goal line technology, there was a really good example last week in the Spurs game against Newcastle. And I think the ball crossed the line by, I think it was 4 or 5 millimetres. Now, at the time, the keeper makes a save, claws it out, all the rest of the ball, but the ball crosses the line sort of above the ground. So it's harder to judge. And where the linesman's looking, the goalkeeper's in front of him, so he can't tell. So you couldn't blame the officials for not giving the goal on that occasion. But they did give the goal because the referee's watch vibrates and the goal line technology kicks in. But that goal today, it crosses the line on the ground. And as Stewart has pointed out earlier on, the player's standing foot's on the line. His kicking foot's about a yard over the line. You shouldn't need goal line technology for that. That comes down to poor officiating every day of the week. Now, I can understand. I'm a big fan of the goal line technology because, as I said, that goal last week at the Newcastle Spurs game, I think years ago when we didn't have that technology, I don't think that goal would have been given. But that today, that's as clear as they come. The linesman's in the right, he's positioned correctly. He's at the corner flag. He's looking right across the line. You should see that. So, yeah, I'm a fan of goal line technology. No such a big fan of VAR. I wasn't impressed with it at the World Cup. I just think it's an extra layer of bureaucracy. But at the end of the day, the officials should have saw that today. They should have given the goal end off.
They should have done. And it's another case of poor refereeing, poor officiating. It bugs me that in this instance, with this kind of issue of goal line technology, it can be so easily fixed. If there's the appetite and, of course, the money for it. Look, today it didn't cost us. I worry, though, that maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe next season, we're talking about an important game and an important decision where it goes against us because there was no goal line technology. And while today we can say, well, it's fine, it didn't really affect us. If that happens in an important game and it goes against us and it does have an effect, it's going to leave a really, really sour taste, and that's what I'm afraid of. It's
happened before. It happened at Parkhead. Lee Wallace scored a header at the back post that wasn't given. I think it was probably about 2012, something like that, obviously, but it has happened before.
Exactly. So I just think it's an easy fix. It's not a cheap fix. It's not a quick fix, but it is a fix that's there. And it's a fix that's been implemented in so many other major football leagues around the world, with minimal complications, minimal controversy. I can't think of, if, like Colin says in the Premier League last week with Newcastle Spurs, that goal's given because the technology sends an instant message to the referee's watch. No one can complain with that. So it's a solution that's already out there, that would stop this argument instantly. And I just worry that, if the SPFL drags their heels and isn't able to find the money to implement it, it will push our game even further behind the big leagues in Europe, and that's what I'm afraid of.
Well, I understand that. I really do. But, I mean, again, in terms of VAR, I'm not a big fan, but the goal line technology is a good one for me because there's no debate about it. It is a goal, that is it, or it's not a goal, end of. The referee knows instantly if it is or it isn't. But I'm sorry to hark on about this. They should have seen that today. It's not a close one where you could say, oh, well, I can understand why the officials didn't give that. It's a shocker. And we're only 3 domestic games into the season. And we've already had a handful of these decisions. We had the Morelos incident, sent off when he shouldn't have been sent off. Scott McKenna probably should have been booked on that occasion, wasn't booked. You had the incident when Windass was brought down for the penalty and the Aberdeen player wasn't sent off. And the more I've seen that Stevie May tackle on Ryan Jack, that's an instant red card. It's a shocking tackle. And they don't get it. You had the red card at St Mirren last week. Admittedly, I think they've got it right in that occasion. But again, it's one of these ones, what way is it going to go? Every time there's been a sort of, what way is it going to go? We have been on the receiving end of it. And I don't want to go down the conspiracy route, but the standard of refereeing in this country, based on what I've seen over the last year to maybe 16 months, is nothing short of shocking. Absolutely shocking. And I understand the argument to bring in certain technologies. The goal line technology is a good one, but it does not excuse the level of officiating today. They should have seen that. That linesman should have seen that. That goal should have been given. You shouldn't need goal line technology for that sort of goal.
So obviously the Kilmarnock game this week was the second game for Rangers in the space of a few days. Games have been coming thick and fast as we progress deeper and deeper into the Europa League. I'd like to move on now and talk about the Maribor game away in Slovenia back on Thursday. This was a game, obviously, we won 3-1 at home at Ibrox the previous week. For me, it was one of the strongest performances I've seen in a long time, especially that second 45. We spoke about it on the pod last week. It was an absolute joy to watch. But then fast forward the week and we're thinking, right, they've got an away goal. All they need to do is score 2. They've got very good attacking options. And the nerves are starting to build. But it was another resolute, sturdy performance. I thought Katic and Goldson were immense until the penalty decision, which we'll talk about in a wee bit. Frankie, from your point of view, like I say, this was a really strong defensive performance away from home, backs against the wall, trying to preserve the goal. How did this game against Maribor and that performance, how did that match up against some of the Walter Smith European away days that we saw, particularly in the run-up to Manchester?
Well, I think it matched up quite well, to be fair to the players. I mean, is Maribor a better team than the likes of Sporting Lisbon and Fiorentina? I'm not so sure about that. I mean, obviously, as soon as we progressed the other night there, the usual suspects in the newspapers were saying that they were awful, failing to realise they were about 60 places ahead of AEK Athens in the rankings. So they're obviously a decent team. They do okay. They've had some good results, especially at home over the years in Europe. So I think to go over there and keep them to a 0-0 draw is good going. I actually thought we probably played a wee bit deeper, sat a bit too deep than what the manager might have liked at times. I think he would probably like us to have got out a bit more often and try and take the game to Maribor. And it wasn't until probably later on where they had to try and score a couple of goals that we were able to try and take advantage of them on the counter. And to be honest, we actually probably should have scored ourselves. I think Goldson had a good run and a half decent shot when he would have probably been better slipping in Candias, and then Morelos at the death after arguing and pushing a few of their players. I think it came from a corner that dropped him and he sort of flashed the ball over the bar when he should have perhaps scored as well. So yeah, it's very good. I was just really pleased that we weren't beat. I don't think it was a penalty. I mean, we're slagging off the Scottish referees quite rightly so far this season. I thought the referee was quite poor during the week as well. And it was never a penalty. Goldson got a touch on the ball and the guy dived, and fortunately the referee bought it, but luckily for us there was a poor penalty and McGregor made an excellent save, so we were able to get away with a draw, and it was well deserved, to be honest. It was very well deserved, and it was a very encouraging and heartening performance to show that this Rangers side have scored a lot of goals
and looked very good in fast attacking displays. But it was very heartening to see how well we could do away from home, trying to defend the goal. The penalty was, I just think it was unfortunate for Connor Goldson, who had been outstanding for me on Thursday. And it was unfortunate that, their attacker was looking for it, and the referee bought it, and fair enough. I thought McGregor did excellent all night, by the way. And the penalty save was fantastic. So it was a shame for Goldson to give that away. Thankfully, again, it didn't matter. It didn't have an impact. Colin, how about yourself? How did you view the game last Thursday?
What I took out last Thursday was, the level of progress we've made under Steven Gerrard. I think you go back a year to when Pedro was still here. I think we walk out of that game there on Thursday night on the wrong end of a fairly bruising result. McGregor made 3 really big saves. The one in the first half for the free kick, I thought that was an excellent save. I thought the boy it was quite clever with his free kick. And McGregor made an excellent save. There was one in the 6-yard box. Again, he anticipated it came out. And obviously the penalty and the defence as well. Just, crucial tackles and, the wide men putting in the work rate in terms of getting back and covering runs and stuff like that. And just a sense that there's a bit of resolve about this Rangers team. So it was a wee bit nervy at times, and I had a squeaky bum more than once, but again a sign that this team has progressed quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 months under Steven Gerrard. Absolutely,
and you make a really good point that a year ago we would not have won that game. A year ago, even with a 3-1 lead going away to Maribor, we would have been knocked out of the Europa League. I believe that anyway. So the thinking then in particular about Katic and Goldson, who have been excellent as a partnership at the back, and McGregor, who he's exceeded my expectations. Personally, I think he's been outstanding, and particularly was outstanding in Maribor. How much of a difference, Colin, has it made reinforcing the 2 centre-backs and bringing in a new keeper?
Well, I think that was always the issue. I mean, I think I've said on previous pods that, it didn't take someone with the sort of reputation of Steven Gerrard to see what was wrong with Rangers. We were the top goal scorers in the division last season in Scotland. So, middle to front, were not too bad. The issue was, especially at home, conceding too many goals and losing too many games. So, we had a soft underbelly. It was sort of mentioned today in commentary at the Kilmarnock game, that Warburton tried to address it, didn't do so. Pedro tried to address it, didn't do so. But Gerrard has obviously done that successfully, and it makes a huge difference to a side. I know there's been sort of comparisons made to Gerrard and Souness. Both came from Liverpool and they've both had similar sort of starts. But Souness done exactly the same thing. He came in, he brought Terry Butcher, brought Chris Woods, Graham Roberts. First thing he done was close the back door. And then from then on in, if you've got a decent foundation, a team like Rangers have always got a chance. And that's what he's done. And it makes such a difference. As I said on Thursday night, with the likes of Russell Martin or whoever, Cardoso or whoever, we would not have come out of that European tie intact, I don't think. And seeing players doing their job to the level that they're doing them is just a good sign of where we're at the moment.
You're right that it doesn't take a genius to see what the issue with us last season was. And that actually, it makes it all the more frustrating that we went through managers like Warburton, Kashinya, Murty, all had transfer windows and couldn't rectify that issue. They could not close the gaps at the back. And it's really frustrating because it doesn't take a footballing genius to realise what the issue was. And that it just smacks of wasted time and wasted money over the past 2 years that managers failed to address those gaps. Now, Frankie, personally for me, I think we've done better than I expected. I remember doing a pod before we played Scoopy, talking about what would represent success this season in Europe. And I never really would have predicted that we would get to the playoff round. I think Osijek are a strong team, and I think Maribor are a very, very good team who didn't quite perform to their potential, particularly in Glasgow. Given the teams that we've beaten and how far we've come now, we've played 6 European ties, and now we're facing Ufa, however you say it, from Russia. Would you be disappointed? Of course you would be disappointed, but how disappointed would you be to fall at the playoff stage and now not make the groups?
First of all, it depends if the game goes ahead. Obviously, the media in Scotland are talking about today that the Russians may be struggling to get visas in time to travel to the UK, so that would be interesting in its own. The Rangers, obviously, we're not like Celtic. We don't want to get walkovers and buys and stuff via rules. So I'd much rather we take the team on and beat them over the two legs, and I think we're more than capable of that. Again, I can refer you to the piece that I read by a Russian journalist during the week, or a Russian-based UK journalist, and he reckons that Rangers are definitely the favourites, but shouldn't be too complacent. He says you've had a decent side. They're especially strong defensively. I'm not convinced about that, given their performance during the week against Progress. I'd like to think we can get to them, especially at Ibrox, but I think there's a long way to go before we can say that this tie is won. We really need to go and beat them at Ibrox, hopefully not concede this time. And if you can take a 2-0 lead over to Russia, then you've got to be confident, just because, as you've been talking about, our defence has been excellent. They give the team a great platform, a great foundation. And most importantly for me, Colin was talking about a soft underbelly. Physically, we were soft mentally, and we're not now. And it'll be interesting to find out why that is. I don't know if it comes straight for the manager, Gary McAllister, as well, possibly. But guys, it's not easy to go abroad and control games like what we've done. We've seen better Rangers teams than this one struggle abroad in such situations. And this team have really done very well in Osijek, Skopje and in Maribor, and nothing but praise for them. We just hope they can keep it going, and it would be a huge disappointing to not make it now, to be honest. It would be,
really, really disappointing. And I guess that's encouraging that we would be so disappointed to not get to the group stages when 4 or 5 weeks ago it was almost unimaginable. And a lot of people were, saying we have to approach this with realism. We're still a work in progress. I think we've especially against Maribor, we've shown over the two ties, two really strong sides of our own team. In the leg at Ibrox, and particularly the second half, was such a dominant attacking display, and then the resolute, sturdy defensive performance away. It's an interesting point that you bring up about the Russians and the visa situation, and obviously it's a very fluid situation. Like I mentioned earlier, we're recording this now on Sunday evening. And the media reports are saying that it might well be sorted Monday, i.e. tomorrow for us. By the time this podcast is released, it might have all been cleared up. We might know if they are going to forfeit the game, or if they get their visas through, or which way it's going to go. We don't know right now. Hopefully in the next couple of days that'll be cleared up. Colin, Frankie mentioned there that he would be disappointed if they forfeited the game and we get a walkover or get a bye into the next round. Do you share that sentiment, or do you think it's, progressing to the group stages at any cost?
I don't think it's about progressing at any cost. I think it would help in terms of, our fixture schedule. The games are becoming thick and fast. And I don't think it would be a bad thing if, especially with the game coming up in the East End of Glasgow in a couple of weeks, that if we don't have to play 2 games against this Russian mob and have to travel and all the rest of it, don't get me wrong, I'm all for earning our place in the group stage. But, if teams aren't doing things properly, and those are the rules, and the rules are rules, as we've been told many times over the last few years by certain bloggers and all the rest of it, if they're not able to complete the paperwork in time and do what's required to play the game, then I'm quite happy not to play the game, because, as I say, the games are coming thick and fast. It's going to be a long season, because it looks like we are going to get to the group stages. So 2 drop fixtures, I'd be happy with that, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm just like to say I agree with Colin. I want to kid in about the Celtic stuff. If we can get the game forfeited in our favour, then that would be fantastic. It would allow us to try and get players fit again, and it would allow us a free week ahead of the Celtic match. We're instead they're obviously playing on the Thursday night, so it could be a huge advantage for us.
Yeah, I see both sides of it, and I know I've seen that kind of the fan base seems to be a bit split as well. But if we get through to the group stages, that's the most important thing. It doesn't really matter how that happens. But with the cries of sporting integrity over the past few years, it would be funny, if nothing else, to get through in this manner. And I've seen certain people joking that this is all a big Masonic government conspiracy, that a year ago we decided to ask our friends at MI5 to fake a Salisbury spy poisoning in the south of England so that we could harm the relations with Russia, but then we can delay the visa process so that when Rangers draw a European tie away in Russia, they can't get here. It's you've no idea how high this goes there.
Well, Ross, there's no shame in not playing a game and still qualifying. There is shame, however, in getting pumped over two legs by a team 6-1 and then qualifying because the team that you played against put on an ineligible player in the last 30 seconds of the game. So if they're going to talk about shame and rules is rules and all the rest of it, then they need to look in the mirror, I think.
It's a good point. And actually, do you know what they should do is Ufa, the Russians, they should get in touch with Celtic and ask if they can borrow their contracts expert or whoever it is that spends their time poring over legislation and making sure that every other team is properly registered, making sure that the sporting integrity is in fact there in every contract and every detail, because whoever Celtic have that pores over all these documents will make sure that there's a way for the Russians to get across. And that's the most important thing, that sporting integrity is upheld. If the game goes ahead, that's the position that we're going to have to go from at the moment. If the game goes ahead against Ufa, obviously we're drawn at home first, which is the same scenario that we had against Maribor, home first, away in the second leg. Colin, does that give us the best chance of qualifying? Is it better to play at home first? Is it better to play away first, try and get an away goal and then tighten things up back at home?
Yeah, I think many years ago there used to be a feeling that get your home tie first. Sorry, get your away tie first and try and get out there unscathed and then get them back home. But I do think that the modern game and the modern sort of thinking is, even if you go away after a home tie and it's 0-0, then you're still in the tie because obviously the away goals have a big impact. So I think a home tie first, it sets us up good. You can kill the tie essentially. If you go out and play right. And I wasn't at the game against Maribor at Ibrox, but people that I've spoke to who were there said the second half performance was the best they'd seen by Rangers in a number of years. If they reach that level of performance against this opposition, then I think the tie could be done in the first leg. If you get a 2-3 goal lead, then it's just a case of going over there and seeing it out. So I think at home tie first is always good, and it served as well in 2008. So I'm always quite happy with the home tie first.
Frankie, do you agree with that, or would you rather go and get the away leg done first and then tighten things up back at Ibrox?
I think it's 6.5, mate. Obviously, we've had it both ways this season. We played away at Scoopy first of all, and then came back, and then obviously we had to play Osijek and Maribor at home first, and I think both have worked fine. I think we just take it how it is. I've no any doubts that the game will go ahead. I think something will get sorted for them to get their visas in time to make the game. So I'd be astonished if it didn't go ahead, to be honest. We just need to go and do the business, keep doing what we're doing, keep playing the way we're doing, keep things tight at the back. And as long as we take our chances, I've still got a bit of doubts about our play in the final third. I think we're getting better, and that's probably understandable as the season gets on. People are getting a wee bit sharper, and they're getting to know each other a wee bit more. So I think we're getting better. But if we can score a couple of goals, 3-1 would probably be fine as well, and go over. I think the tie's over. But as I say, we'll have to avoid complacency and really go and do the business.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, we are sitting here, we're 180 minutes away from continental football up until Christmas. And being honest, I don't think anyone realistically predicted that 6 weeks ago. So with two good performances in the bag this week, it's time for us probably to take another look at how the squad's shaping up. Transfer window is going to be slamming shut in a few weeks' time at the end of the month. And for me, there's still a wee bit of work to be done. Big news this week, just before the Maribor game, was the news breaking about a transfer bid coming in for Alfredo Morelos from Bordeaux, which it was reported at the time, they've offered 3.75 million, which was swiftly booted out of Ibrox, and they've been told not to come back unless it's a significantly higher offer by all accounts. It's a very low opening bid at 3.75 million. We've discussed Morelos a lot, and we've seen just from this season alone, the impact that Gerrard seems to have had on him seems to be massive. He's found his confidence again. He's playing with a smile on his face, which was a big criticism of Morelos, was that he didn't really seem to be enjoying it. His heart didn't seem to be in it. It seemed like after the bid came from China, he was wanting away, he down tools a wee bit. This season, it appears that He's really buying into the Steven Gerrard revolution. And for me, 3.75 million is a very, very low bid. It's almost laughably low. But given the financial situation of Rangers, which certainly in Scotland amongst certain media outlets is very, very well documented, Frankie, what stage does it become silly to turn down bids for Morelos? Every player has his value. Can you try and guide us as to where that value for Morelos actually lies?
It's a tricky question, mate. I think this afternoon or the other day there, Gerrard obviously said that every player has their price, and I think it would be foolish to suggest otherwise. We can't compete with English teams, German teams, French teams nowadays financially. So the only way we can try and even do anything in the European sort of arena is to buy players low and sell them high. So we got Morelos for $1 million. So if we're able to sell them for substantially more, then that has to be a positive. The problem comes is the timing of selling them, and obviously there's no way we could have sold them before Thursday night's game. And at the minute, you could say, all right, somebody's bid 10 million. I mean, if somebody bids 10 million, then you've got to seriously think about it. The problem is, what do you get? Do you spend the whole 10 million on his replacement? Do you spend half? Do you spend a third? Do you spend $1 million on Lafferty? I mean, I think that one of our best strikers in recent years was Nikica Jelavic. I think we signed him for around about 4 million. So it shows you that there's great strikers out there for reasonable money, but the problem is you have to bed them in. I mean, Jelavic was quite as a good example because he actually sort of hit the ground running as well. I think in his second game for us, away to Hamilton, he scored his first goal. So it's not guaranteed you've got to do that with any striker. It's not guaranteed they're not going to be injured or anything like that. So the problem right away is we don't have a natural ready-made replacement for Morelos. So if he gets injured tomorrow or if he's sold tomorrow, who do we play up front? Is it Sadiq, who looks clumsy at best? I mean, to be unfair, he's only had a few minutes here or there, so the guy needs to be playing more often for us to make a fair judgment on his qualities. But as I say, it's a huge risk to sell Morelos. So if you offer 10 million, then I think you've got to seriously think about it. But as I say, the timing is everything on this now. And I mean, how many days we've got left to the end of the transfer window? 12 days. So it's you're going to struggle to get somebody in. I'd like to think we've got people on our radar if Bordeaux or if anybody else comes back in. But it seems to me that we're not going to sell them now, which is a positive, certainly if we qualify for the Europa League. But as I say, at some point you do have to sell these players, so it's just a matter of when's the best time, not if.
Yeah, I think given our position, that the business model should be, the buy low, sell high model. You're right that every player does have his price, but I think as every day ticks on in the transfer window and we get one day closer to the transfer window closing, that price goes up, because you're right. We have to be pragmatic about this, and I think everyone kind of accepts that we probably need another striker anyway as it is. So if Morelos goes, we probably need to sign another 2 strikers. So you hope that Mark Allen and the scouting team are working on identifying targets pretty rapidly in order to close that gap. If indeed he does get sold, every day that passes, it probably looks less likely. And with the smile on Alfredo's face at the moment, especially today coming off the match ball, hopefully he wouldn't want to leave at the moment. He wants to continue playing under Steven Gerrard, but we'll just have to see. And I think it'll be a busy 12 days. I'm personally praying that they don't come back in for him, because I think not just the potential, but what he brings to the team now, not just in scoring goals, but his hold up play, bringing other players into play, is so valuable. And you're right, 10 million is the figure that I have in my head when it becomes very difficult to turn that down. But I think we'll just have to see where we are in a week's time and in 2 weeks' time, and hopefully we can hang on to him till the end of the season. I mentioned there in passing that there's a bit of a gap up front. Umar Sadiq, clumsy at best, is a good way of describing him. He's certainly unorthodox, and I've not seen anything, but we've not seen a lot of him so far. But not seen a lot that would fill us with confidence that this guy is going to go on and bag 30 goals a season. So there's this gap up front for me that needs to be filled, and the name that keeps coming back and back and back is Kyle Lafferty. And it's been well documented, obviously, that we went in with at least one bid. There's been negotiations. It's not that we were told to, away you go, he's not for sale. I think there's been a lot of dialogue between us and Hearts, and all of the noises coming from the club and coming from the media at the moment is that this deal is probably going to happen. And that seems to have divided the support. We don't know what the fee will be, but just bringing Lafferty back in himself seems to have divided the support. Colin, where do you come down on this debate with Kyle Lafferty? Is he really the best option? Does he bring something that we don't have, or is he kind of more trouble than he's worth?
That's an interesting question, Ross. In terms of re-signing Kyle Lafferty, I would probably say I'm in favour of it, and there's a number of reasons. One, I think he's a better player than the Kyle Lafferty that left a few years back. Two, I think he has that mentality that we've spoken about in the past, that winner's mentality. You know, the sort of mentality that Alan McGregor has. You know, you can see what Alan McGregor's done to that team. For me, there's an argument to say he's been the best of Steven Gerrard's signing so far, because he's just instilled that winning mentality into the team. And I think Kyle Lafferty would come with that. I think Alan McCoy's mentioned today in commentary that, you know, he scores big goals, which is something that we need. You know, that's something that you can maybe argue Morelos is not doing at the moment. He's scoring goals, but in the bigger games every now and again, he's kind of let us down. And there's this thing about the dressing room as well. I always remember Graham Souness talking about Ray Wilkins when Ray Wilkins left the club. And Souness, he made a comment which I can honestly say I didn't get at the time. He says, I get more from him in the dressing room than I get on the park. And it was only later in life, and you know, obviously not in football, but I was a manager myself, you know, dealing with staff and all the rest of it. And you start to realise that each person gives you something different. It might not be the direct thing that the core purpose of the team, but they do something that makes everybody else's day a bit better. So they're doing something, they're contributing indirectly. And I think Kyle Lafferty can offer that. He can offer a sense of, I don't want to use the word hatred, but it's been obvious for me for a while that there's a lot of players in that Celtic team that don't like us, and they are very keen to show it when they play. And I think we've lacked that. We've lacked that sort of mentality on the part when we've played them. And I think Kyle Lafferty will bring that. And again, it's not, if people just bring it down to numbers, how many goals is he going to get? I think you're looking at between 15 and 20 tops, right? But there's other things that he brings, and it's things that we've been missing in that club for a long, long time. And there are essential things for a club like Rangers. So you need guys in that dressing room to tell the guys that don't really know what's happening and what the rivalry's all about, hey, by the way, we hate this shower, so I want everything out of you today. You know what I mean? And I don't think we've had that. I don't think we've had that the last 2 or 3 years when we played against Celtic, and I think he'll bring that. So yeah, I think Lafferty would be a good addition to the squad. But I'm hearing Kerry Miller's available, so who knows? We might bring him back.
It sometimes feels like we'll be reading, you know, the year is 2039. Barack Obama's daughter's just been elected president of the United States, and Kenny Miller has signed for Rangers for the 14th time.
He's harder to get rid of than chlamydia, you know what I mean?
Do you know what? I wouldn't know, Colin. I would not know.
I don't believe that. I do not believe that, Ross. So we'll stop the conversation there.
You hear the wee quiver in my voice there? The thing is, right, so if we get Kyle Lafferty back, I believe that he does bring something that we don't currently have, and he plugs a gap, and that's fine. Frankie, for you, where else do we have gaps? Where else do we still need to reinforce?
Well, obviously we need a centre half. I mean, I can't have been the only Rangers fan today that was worried this afternoon when, well, obviously Katic had his head knocked, so I was worried that he was going to get taken off or maybe have a week out with a concussion, as happened with Ryan Jack. And then when Goldson went down later in the game and it looked like he had a dead leg and was maybe struggling as well, it just showed the lack of depth we have at centre half. I mean, I think Flanagan could probably play there. Barisic maybe at a push. Ross McCrory's done well in patches there, but I think Gerrard's said a few times he sees him more as a midfield player. So we definitely need another centre half. I don't think there's any doubt about it. We've looked at a few over the summer. I think Jake Cooper seemed to be the preferred option, but Millwall obviously, well within their rights, they've turned us to any bid we've made down. At that point, I think we were looking to sign him for around about $3 million. since then, obviously, we've signed Barisic for 1.5, 2 million. So it's debatable how much money is left in the budget. Clearly, at that point, we didn't realise we were going to hopefully qualify for the group stages of the Europa League. So maybe there's a bit more money available. It's been interesting that there hasn't been a huge amount of rumours about a centre half. So, but the manager continually said he wants another one. So it'll be fascinating to see who we do sign, because I think Gerrard's press conference after the game today was pretty keen to hit home again that he wanted a centre half. He wanted another striker. I think Lafferty looks 99% certain, just because of the way Gerrard was reacting to the press today about it. So, yeah, I think a centre half, a striker, and now with Murphy, good chance he's going to be missing a large portion of the season along with Graham Dorrans. It looks like we'll certainly need another creative player, possibly not necessarily a wide player, but certainly a creative guy. I think Mark Allen's got his work cut out for him this week.
Yeah, busy few weeks ahead. Certainly interesting times, and well, like we said earlier, the games coming thick and fast. At least two games every week. Transfer window closing in 12 days' time. It's certainly going to be a very, very interesting week or two, guys. I think that probably just about sums it up for us tonight. It's been a very positive week, and I know that we're all buzzing. We're all on cloud nine after a good result today and a good result in midweek, and I hope that when we speak again in a week's time, we're feeling even better. As always, my thanks go out to Stuart and to Colin for joining me on the podcast this evening. A big thanks also going out to Graham, our audio engineer, for all his hard work in putting the show together. The podcast will be back next week to reflect on another European night at Ibrox, followed by a trip to Motherwell to face the Steelmen. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out. If you've enjoyed the show, please do rate and review and let us know your thoughts. You can always head to www.gersnet.co.uk. Check out all the great content that's there up on the site. Whilst you're there, you might as well get joined up to the forum, get involved with all the lively discussion. And finally, if this podcast hasn't been enough and you're crying out for more Rangers content, then definitely head over and check out our pals at We Welcome the Chase. You'll find their show wherever you found ours, and they're always worth a listen. All that's left for me to say is thanks for joining us and good night, and we will see you next week.